want to begin by thanking you for being with us today and for
It's my
agreeing
pleasure.
to donate an hour of your time to this history project. Why don't I ask you to introduce yourself with your full name, if you have a middle name, and then if you have a maiden name, you can give us who you are.
Well, my name is Gloria Nancy Hannemann, but I was born Gloria Nancy Geluso. My maiden name is Geluso.
Did you have nicknames growing up?
Yes, I did. I had several. Well, my friends call me Glow. Just about everybody I know calls me Glow. But my mother always called me Glowworm. And in school, I got the nickname Sunshine. So I use either Glowworm or Sunshine. Wonderful. Yeah, my mother used to run around the house singing, "Glow, little glowworm."
Yes. That was the generation.
Yeah. So that's now my screen name.
Okay. It's been recycled.
Yes.
Where did Nancy come from?
My grandmother. My mother's mother's name is Nancy.
Mm-hmm. And was that your mother, obviously, who wanted to name you Nancy, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah. I think because they didn't name my first name after my grandmother, because my mother didn't want to follow the tradition, the typical Italian tradition, so she at least then gave me the middle name of my grandmother.
Talking about family traditions, what is your present family situation? Today?
Me?
Yes.
Today? Oh, I live with my husband,
Mm-hmm.
Victor, and just one son, VJ. He's Victor John, but I've always called him VJ.
Mm-hmm. Is Victor your only child?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I just have one child.
And how long have you been married?
I got to remember, 37 years. Yeah, 37 years, and just in September.
How did you meet your husband?
Oh, that was a funny story. I was a Spanish major in college, and I taught. Actually, it was my first. I was teaching in Brentwood at the time. I taught bilingual for 1 year, and then I had left and had gone to Mexico. Then my second year I taught R.O.B.S. I was teaching Spanish in R.O.B.S High School for 1 year. Then I left to study in Mexico because I felt I wasn't fluent enough in Spanish to be a really good Spanish teacher. I was there for a year. I came back, and when I came back, I owed my parents, I owed so much money because they were paying my bills while I was away. So I figured, besides going back into teaching, I was going to go back. My job, they offered me my job back in Brentwood, but it still wasn't enough money to pay all my bills because I just bought a brand new car. So I was looking for a part-time job, and I went into Huntington, local restaurant at the time, see, well, maybe I can work as a waitress on the weekends. And I met one of my former students who was teaching Spanish, and he said, oh, because my husband's from Mexico. And so this student of mine said, oh, there's somebody here visiting. He's working here as a waiter at the restaurant, and he just came from Mexico. He doesn't speak English. He has no friends. You just came from Mexico. You could talk to him. And it started out as a friendship, and, I invited him over. He used to come over all the time. He was like a friend of the family, and then the rest is history.
Isn't that wonderful? Wow. What part of Mexico did he come from?
Originally from Chiapas, the southernmost part, about 8 miles from the Guatemalan border. But then he moved to Mexico City, where he was going to school.
Have you been down to visit his
yeah. I've been
hometown
many times. Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the trips back to Italy? Have you ever taken him to Italy?
Yes. Oh, yeah. In fact, he likes Italy better than Mexico.
Right?
Yeah, because he's been in the country here now for like 39 years. But we've been to Italy twice. And then we also went to Sicily, because that's where my father's family's from. And we actually met some relatives, distant relatives. Wonderful. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
What about your mother was Italian, was she?
Yeah, both sides of both parents, but my grandparents, my grandparents were born in Italy. Okay. My mother's father was from Calabria, mother from Naples, and my father's mother and father were both from Sicily. And my father's parents didn't speak English, or very limited, but my mother's parents did.
So it was your mother was born here.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I wanted to, if you visited, I guess you said Naples.
We've been to Naples too, but in Sicily is where we met a distant relative of my father's, which was my father's family, father's side, in this little town right outside of Palermo, or near Corleone. Because I love The Godfather, so I liked watching. I had to visit Corleone.
How did they earn a living back there and back in Sicily? What did the family do?
They were back in Sicily. They were farmers. Yeah, they were just farming.
All right. Now, what about you? Tell me about your son. I'm going to get to the rest of the family in a little while, but tell me about your son.
My son? My best friend.
Your best friend?
Yeah.
That's nice to hear.
He's 35 years old. He teaches art in Kings Park, in elementary school. Yeah, the family tradition. In fact, he did teach in Brentwood on 1 year. He did teach here 1 year. He taught art his first year. I think it was like a replacement contract. He was in 5 different buildings, and then he got his job in Kings Park. As I said, he got married last summer. He got married, and here I was thinking, you're going to lose your son because it's always the wife. And as I was saying before, her parents moved to Michigan.
What's her name?
Trish.
Okay.
And so I have him to myself. That's kind of selfish. But so now I have the 2 of them. I've gained a daughter because she doesn't have family here. So I've gained a daughter and a son, and they bought a house around the block.
Oh, isn't
that wonderful? It can't be any better than that.
Oh, damn, that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about his. Well, if he's teaching and he is teaching in the arts, then he is a talented person, and you see the talent.
Right, and not just he's very good, not just in art, but he likes fishing and hunting. In fact, he owns property upstate. He has like 55 acres. I mean, if he really had his way, he wouldn't work. He would be up there all the time because he loves, he ties his own flies for fly fishing. He's into bow hunting. He's got his dog. He loves, I think, anything that has to do with military too, like the theme. He's everything art, because when he wanted to join, I wouldn't let him. I said, I'm not giving up my son. And so he has a lot of those interests. He's very, very laid back. He works so well with the kids. They love him. They absolutely love him. So I think it was a perfect...
He has a lot of interest, so he's going to be very happy in retirement.
Oh my God,
many years
yes.
from now. Many years from now.
In fact, he was kind of jealous when I retired. He said, I wish it were me.
Are there recognizable family traits that you see in your son that you know belong to other members of the family before him?
Yeah, it's funny that you should ask that. Definitely, he has all the traits of my father. But what's very interesting is he never met my father. My father passed away when I was 21, so he never knew him. But he is exactly like him. He has all the hunting, the fishing, because nobody else, like my husband, doesn't hunt or fish or this type of thing, and he does. He has all of the interests and the same traits, the mannerisms that my father has.
Isn't that
and
interesting?
so, and I always, which makes me feel good, because I always felt that he missed out. He would have been a wonderful grandfather to him. So
but he still is a wonderful grandfather to him.
So and he talks about him as if he knows him.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, which is nice.
What about you in growing up? Were you an only child? Or
No, I have an older sister. I'm kind of the middle. An older sister, a younger sister, and a much younger brother.
Tell me their names.
Joan is my older sister. She's 2 years older than I am. She was also a teacher.
Does she live locally?
No, she lives upstate in Pine Plains, New York.
And what did she teach?
She taught science, biology, and in fact, I believe she did teach in Brentwood. She may have taught in South Junior High 1 year, I think. I'm pretty sure. Her first or second year, she subbed here. And my younger sister, who lives in Florida, Mary Jane, she's 3 years younger than I am. And then my brother, Joseph, who lives right in the same town as I do, he's 8 years younger than I am. And I think the reason I'm so close with my son, too, is because it's like reliving having my brother, because when my brother was a baby when I was 8 years old, he was like my baby.
Right.
And he's very similar. He and my brother are very similar.
What is your younger sister doing today?
My younger sister, she's retired. She was selling real estate for a while.
Okay. And your brother?
My brother, he's currently, he works, he's a salesman for a lumber company.
So you have quite a bit of talent in your family in all different areas. People are skilled and professional in many areas of life. Do you have contact with them? Do you get to Florida? Do you get upstate to visit?
Yeah, upstate. Yeah, we go upstate. Okay. My sister comes down, for the holidays. Yeah. We see her more often because she's only 2.5 hours away. Whereas my younger sister, we've gone to visit her 2 or 3 times, and she was up here maybe about a month ago.
Gloria, where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn.
Where?
In Brooklyn Jewish Hospital.
That would have been in what neighborhood?
Well, I lived in, I'm trying to think, it was Sheepshead Bay.
Okay.
East 16th Street and Avenue U.
Oh, okay.
I just remember the address. In fact, we were just talking about that the other day. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put the address in my GPS because I want to go see the house.
Haven't done that in a while.
No.
And when were you born?
July 8th, 1944.
So you were born in the Second World War. We're still
right,
in,
right.
And we still had another year to go. What's your earliest memory? Because I
do remember. I know we moved from that house when I was 2. I only lived there till I was 2 or 3 years old. But I do remember the house. We lived in a brownstone. We were up on the 2nd floor because I remember the.
Was it a 2-family house?
Yeah, 2-family. My parents owned the house, and they had people renting downstairs. But I do remember because the train went almost right through our backyard, like the L train.
The L.
And I just remember as a kid, I remember the noise. Every time the train would go by, I would get kind of scared.
And
so I do remember.
That was the train that went to Coney Island, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Coney Island. Oh, yes, that I remember too.
You have memories of that too.
My memories of Coney Island is I have an uncle, my father's brother, he was the youngest, and he used to babysit for us. He was he was a lot of fun and everything. And every year on the last day of school, all through elementary school, he would come over the house and he would ask, okay, who got promoted? Whoever got promoted, I'm taking to Coney Island. So that was the last day of school every year from kindergarten through 5th grade.
What a great
We went to Coney Island if we got promoted.
Special.
So all year you would say, oh, you better get promoted because I want to go to Coney Island. Steeplechase. I remember.
You said you had early memories of that house, so
yes.
You were under 2 years old?
Yeah, right, because I do, just very vaguely.
Okay. You told me before, but what was your mother's maiden? No, you didn't tell me your mother's maiden name.
Oh, my mother's, her maiden name was Barbario.
Okay. And you mentioned they were farmers.
No, on my father's side,
on
in
your father's
Sicily.
Side.
On my mother's side, I don't remember. She told me what her grandfather did stained glass for churches, and that's how my grandmother wound up coming here because he was commissioned to do one of the churches, I think, upstate, and that's how they first came here. My father's family, they came over because my grandfather was in the he knew how to do construction. And he started construction, building bridges and things like that. And then my grandmother, she opened a dress. She was a very good seamstress. She was a seamstress in Sicily. And so when she came here, she and her brother pooled their money and they opened a dress factory. They made beautiful wedding gowns, and so they had a very
in Brooklyn.
That they opened in Manhattan.
In Manhattan.
Yeah. So she was they did very well financially.
Okay.
And on my mother's...
clearly the art that your son enjoys came to him from that side of the family.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to assume so, right?
Yeah.
Because my aunt was very good at drawing too, and yeah.
Wow. What did your mom, when she... In those days, women didn't have too much spare time, first of all, because they were homemakers and Gal Fridays. They did everything at home. But when she had time to herself, what did she enjoy doing?
Reading. Oh, my gosh. She reads everything. To this day, she's 90 years old, and she reads. We make fun of her, though. Sometimes she's so cute because she buys all those, besides whatever, she reads the paper, front to back and everything. She's always reading books. But she's always goes down to the library, and for $1, you can buy like a bushel of books. But she buys those little Harlequin romance novels. So she loves those. That's like her
Isn't that
her
crazy?
little side stuff. But she's very, very, very bright because she reads a lot. Her mother, my grandmother, was also very, very bright. In fact, when she came here, she was 14 or 15, and she graduated. She learned English so quickly, and she graduated valedictorian from high school in Manhattan.
Now, I will say that it was not usual for people to finish school.
Right,
in
right,
those
and
days.
especially if you come over, yeah. But
Because-
they were a little on my mother's side.
Okay.
Her mother, because she came over with the governess, that not your typical immigrant.
Okay, all right. Do you know where they came? Did they come into Ellis Island?
No, I don't think they did.
They
For
didn't,
some reason,
okay.
I don't think they did. On my father's side, I
Because
believe
they would have
did.
come over by steamship. They would not have come over. The
I don't know
age
if
of-
they actually came. Yeah, I'm not
The
sure.
age of air travel hadn't occurred yet. They were
Yeah.
still
Oh, right.
pretty much coming by steamship. Let's see what I want to ask you. Your early family life, with you being in the middle, and by the way, do you think that affected the person that you became? Sometimes we hear that if you're an only child or if you're the youngest, or what about being a middle child? Did that affect you in any particular way?
No, I think
Positively or
I don't know.
otherwise?
The only, if I say like an effect, is, but my older sister was very. She talked a lot, She was like my mouthpiece. She did all the talking. She was very talented. She was very intelligent. All that. So I kind of took a back seat in that sense. But I liked it because this way nobody paid too much attention to me, and I could just enjoy. I enjoyed everything and let her do all the talking. Let her do everything. And so I think that's why I was very shy growing
But you're
up.
not that way anymore.
No, not
It served
no. But
your purposes then, but you have changed.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. But
I
I
would
just
say you
remember I was
outgrown.
afraid of my shadow, and in that sense, I guess being the second
Yeah,
child.
Sure. What about other adult influences on your life besides mom and dad or your immediate family, your nuclear family? Were there other adults that had formative influence on you?
Yes, yeah, two in particular, but I would say almost all. Very typically, the way an Italian family is it's the extended family. If you do something, everybody knows about it. Your aunts, your uncle, you had to answer to everybody. So I think that's why you always behave too, because everybody knew what was going on. So, and family was very important. So the two people that had the most influence on me, other than my father, would be my Uncle Carmen, which is because he's the one who kind of made me go to college. What happened was when I was in high school. Well, my dream was to be a secretary because I love paperwork. I like being organized. I like filing. I like typing. I love all that stuff. And but when I graduated high school, my uncle, this was my Uncle Carmen, he said,
Is this on your father's side?
on my mother's side.
On your
This is one of my mother's sister's husbands. And at my high school graduation party, he made me promise that I would go, and I kept saying no, but I want to be a secretary. I need to go to college. I was already accepted in Claremont Secretarial School. I'm ready to go. I'm really excited. And he kept saying, but you could still be a secretary even if you go to college. He says, but if you go to secretarial school and you finish and you decide you want to do something else, you can't. So why don't you do that? And I kept saying, no, because I hated history. I said, there's no way I can take another history course. I don't want to do that. And so I agreed. So I have him to thank for having gone to college. And then when I graduated college, it was my Uncle Michael, who I'd mentioned, Michael DeBellis, who was the principal at South Junior High School, who then made me become, not that he made me become a teacher, but he was the one who was very, very influential. Actually, yes, it was because of him that I did become a teacher. Because when I finished college, I figured, okay, good. Now I was a Spanish major. Not only can I be a secretary, I'm going to be a bilingual secretary. And I still held out that that's what I'm going to do. And it was at my college graduation party at home, and my Uncle Michael said, he says, I know you, all right, you can still be a secretary if you want. He says, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to come to my school, and I want you to sit in on a few classes and things like that and see, I bet you're really going to like teaching. And he made me sit in with the phys ed teacher, with the Spanish teacher, all that, because he says, I know this is really what you need to be.
Now, Claudia
And
DeBellis is your
my cousin, right. And they're related because my mother's sister Helen is Helen is my mother. Uncle Michael's wife is my mother's
And what is
sister.
ironic from what you're telling me is that the DeBellises are a family institution in the district.
I know, yeah, and I've had so many other.
And now I, for the first time, become made aware
There's another.
that this is an extension of that family. And what I'm wondering what your reaction is to the accusation of some critics that there are too many family members in Brentwood that work for the district, that nepotism is run rampant.
What does that have to do with teaching, though? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that we're all qualified. And the way I see it, too, is usually in families, people are very similar. You're raised with the same values, so you know you're getting good stuff.
And there's a commitment and
definitely.
an identity that
definitely.
is very much involved.
That's why I think I had mentioned before. To me, Brentwood is almost like my home, because even when I was a kid, my uncle, that was one of the things my uncle used to always talk about Brentwood and talk about his students, and I felt like, wow, this is a special place. And so it's more than just being a teacher here.
So it was pretty much Mike DeBellis then who directed your future career.
Yeah,
path.
right. And that, because what it was, and I, like I said, I did go into the following week. I think I went into the city to work. It was a receptionist at Aeromexico at the time, R.O.B.S it was, and I lasted one day. Like the pay was $100 a week. And then just to go back and forth. And then that's when my uncle called me to say, you know, there's an opening in Brentwood. We need somebody who speaks Spanish to teach English to the Spanish-speaking pull-out, like ESL.
Yes.
Because there were 3 people doing it, and one person had resigned because he got a job.
Who were the 3 people?
It was Nikki Brash, Nikki Nin at the time, Nikki Nin Brash, John Rivera, and I don't remember his first name, Valenzuela was his name, but he got a job with IBM and left, and they said, oh, we need somebody. And I was like, but I don't have certification or anything. He says, don't worry, you can do this. And naturally, I put the cart before the horse, because then I got my certification after, and I've been here ever since.
What was you as a teacher? You make many difficult decisions.
Oh, yeah.
What was one of the most difficult decisions you ever had to make?
As a teacher? Like a personal decision or for a student?
Well, as a teacher, we certainly make a lot of personal decisions too. But in the course of your career, let's say, you've made a lot of tough decisions, tough calls.
Yeah.
But
it's hard offhand to think of the most difficult.
Okay.
But in general, when I taught for 20 years, and then I went into guidance in the middle school for 20 years, and on a daily basis, I had to make a lot of decisions for kids. I think a lot more than I did when I was teaching.
Okay.
You know, with things that are going on, but I can't think of anything specific.
Nothing jumps out
right now. Yeah.
I would say that as a teacher, you have also been the recipients of gifts down through the years.
Yeah.
People give you gifts, kids give you gifts. Do you remember a particular special gift that you once received?
Yeah, one of my students gave me, I can't describe, there were these 2 little porcelain animals, but to this day I haven't figured out what the animals are. But it had just a special meaning because I played a very important part in her life and how her life went. So I have them in the living room, right, on my shelf there.
As a constant
But it was very
reminder,
special because I didn't realize, because she was tough. And I didn't realize that she appreciated what I had done, because I didn't realize
there was a soft side
I had gone
there.
through. Yeah, I had gotten through to her.
Yes.
So that really meant a lot.
Wonderful. Do you remember your first paying job?
Yeah. You mean part-time
the very
jobs?
first job that you ever had that gave you money in your hand.
Oh, yeah. I worked in Singer sewing machine company that was part-time to help pay for college. So it was the summer that I graduated high school. I worked there part-time.
Where were they located?
On Underhill Boulevard in Syosset.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah. But I remember it was, what they had me do is that I had to sub for whoever was on vacation like whoever was on vacation that week or whatever. So I had a variety of chores, jobs, but the one that was, when I was I had to work in the warehouse, huge warehouse with these little tiny bins with parts, needles and things, and I had to count and inventory. This was pull it out, count, pull it out, and I did that for 2 days, and that also made me think, I'm glad I'm going to college because this I can't do.
That was a taste of it.
And then I did a week of filing packing slips, and they were tissue thin, like this thick, and you finish the pile, think, oh good, I'm going to take a break, and then they put another pile on your desk. Like, oh yeah, you know, and the numbers were this long.
Never ends.
You're right. I said, okay. But those
Do you remember
were,
how much you made for doing that? What you were paid?
Oh my gosh, I don't
Must
remember.
Have been a fortune. Must have been a fortune.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just trying to think how much money I did save that whole summer. I think I earned maybe $300 the whole summer. But it was a lot. I mean, back then that was a lot because my first year teaching salary, my contract was $5,000 a year for the year. That was a lot.
Yes. What was I'm
that was
going back
exciting.
to earlier. I'm going back to earlier. Excuse me. Going back to earlier times. Your family celebrated holidays together.
Yes.
What was the big one?
Oh, Christmas Eve. Oh. Yeah, where you have to eat all the fish.
Oh,
and we still, and
Tell me about that.
We have Christmas Eve at my house every year too, so to keep up the tradition. And I always remember though, as a kid, when we would eat at my grandmother or my one aunt on my father's side used to always have Christmas Eve, and it was like all the fish. But as a kid, you really didn't appreciate that. You just really wanted to see something normal because the fish were like snails and squid and these whole little fried fish with the head still on it and nothing that to a kid looked edible. And I just remember, oh, I can't wait till midnight because then I can have sausages because you couldn't eat meat. And so that was like the biggie, like, oh my gosh, you know, this is.
But you continue the tradition.
Yeah, but I make shrimp.
Oh,
No, I still, we still have the calamari and all that.
Wonderful.
You know, we try and keep that up.
You mentioned that you didn't like history when you were in school.
Oh my gosh, no.
Was that your worst subject?
Yes, yeah.
And your favorite subject was
Spanish and math. Actually, math was my favorite
Really?
subject.
Okay.
I loved math because I almost considered maybe majoring in math and being a math teacher. But it's funny when we talk about being, at the time I was still under like my sister, and we were at post-college together. She was 2 years ahead of me. She was a math major, and she was taking calculus, I think it was, and she dropped it because she said it was too hard. So I never attempted to take the math because I figured, well, if she can't do it and she's smarter than I am, I'm not even going to try, which I was kind of sorry after. But being a Spanish major worked out because I got a good job. And
it happened for a reason.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Now, back then, did you have a favorite season of the year?
Summer. I've always summer to this day. Summer is my absolute favorite.
Okay.
I dread the winter. I'm not a winter person. I don't like being cold.
What about a favorite aroma of yours that evokes something from your life, from your
Well, you know,
history?
it's funny when you say a favorite, but there's an aroma that evokes something, but it's not always a favorite.
What's that?
Is the smell of burning leaves. It reminds me it's time to go back to school, that the summer is over. That sound and the sound of the geese flying over, and to this day, I get this feeling like, oh, summer's over. Because when we were kids, you were allowed to burn. I remember.
That's right.
Because we lived in Franklin Square at the time.
That's
and
right.
I remember
Piles
you'd
of
rake the
leaves.
leaves and you just always burn the leaves out front. But it was the fall, so that's.
Yes.
But offhand to think of yes, there is. What's the name? There's a perfume that it just always. I always think of my mother because she absolutely loved that, and I could just remember.
Okay.
It was. Nina Ricci, I think, is the perfume or whatever. And that, because my aunt used that too, who had passed away. And so that sometimes I say,
that
oh,
evokes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wonderful, wonderful. I know memories have a strong, aromas have a strong evocative connotation to them.
Yeah, certain things will just hit you. But I just know that
From the time that you began school, did you start in kindergarten?
Yes, yeah.
You didn't go to preschool or nursery
No,
school?
no.
Or anything like
I went
that?
to school.
What are the schools you attended from kindergarten?
Okay,
on?
from kindergarten to 5th grade, I went to John Street Elementary School. And it's an interesting story about that. I mean, I loved it. It was walking
And that was in
distance.
Sheepshead Bay?
No, that was because I was 2 years, when I was 3 years old, we moved to Franklin Square,
I
West
see.
Hempstead. We moved to
Okay.
West Hempstead. So
Okay.
I went to John Street School
In Franklin Square.
in Franklin Square, West Hempstead. We were within walking distance. We just had to cross Hempstead
Is
Turnpike.
the school still there?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was there maybe about 10 years ago when I drove by to see. But that's another place that I want to go back to. I went there from kindergarten through 5th grade. I absolutely loved it. I loved all my teachers. The way they had it is you had the same kids in all your classes every year. So whoever it was kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and I remember all my teachers. What happened is then my parents bought a house in Huntington, and at the end of 5th grade, they said we were moving. I was so upset. I visited, how can you do this to me?
Oh.
One of the main reasons, not just that I wasn't going to see my friends, but there was a 6th grade teacher that I couldn't wait till I was in 6th grade to have this teacher, Mr. Lally, who everybody loved him. And I figured, now it's finally my turn. I waited all these years. Mr. Lolly's going to be my teacher, and we're moving. Coincidence of all coincidences, we moved to Greenlawn, some little town that nobody heard of. It's still, like everybody's got hayseed in their hair, this country little town.
Right.
And I show up, first day of school. Who's the teacher? Mr. Lally. He had moved. Here I am in 6th grade, and Mr. Lally is my teacher.
Wow.
This doesn't happen. And first of all, for him to even find a school district that was in a town that nobody even, small population, nothing like that. And
Somebody's watching out for you.
I know. It was like, I couldn't believe it. And what was even nice that first day, because it was a small school, kindergarten through 8th grade in one little building. There was no cafeteria or anything. And we ate, and I remember when I was sitting there at my desk with my lunch that you bring in your bag, and he called me over to his desk and he goes, you know what, I see we're both new. We don't have any friends. We'll eat lunch together. So not only this teacher, but I get to eat lunch.
You knew you were going to have a great experience in that school.
Yeah. So that was nice.
So you attended that school through the 8th grade, and then you went to high school?
No, actually, I was there through 6th, because then they built a junior high school in Harbor Fields, the Harbor Fields. At the time, it was Taylor Avenue Junior High School. And then they centralized Greenlawn and Centerport combined. That's how they got the name Harbor Fields, because it was the harbor of Centerport and the fields of Greenlawn.
I see.
There was 2 towns, because there weren't enough people in either town to have a high school.
Yes.
So then they formed the Harbor Field School District. So I was there 7, 8, and then I graduated there. I was in the 3rd graduating class. My sister was in the 1st graduating class of Harbor Fields.
Yeah, those were the years when communities on Long Island were growing like...
Oh, yeah.
Including Brentwood, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We didn't get there yet. Right now, you're leaving high school and you then pursue a college education.
Right. I went to post-college.
You went to post.
Undergraduate there. Mm-hmm. I did, as a Spanish major, I got my BS in Spanish.
Okay.
And then I started, when I started teaching. And then when I went back to graduate school, I think I was in graduate school for like about 15 years.
Did you go to post for the graduate work?
Yes, not initially. In the beginning, way back then, you didn't need a master's for permanent certification. You just needed 30 credits.
Right.
So I took credits at Hofstra. I took credits at Stony Brook. And then when I took 1 or 2 classes at Post at the Brentwood campus, then that's when I decided, okay, I guess I might as well get a master's degree. And so then I went to Post full time, and I got my master's in bilingual education, because at the time Brentwood was the district, through the Title VII funding. We got 3 free graduate credits, and Post gave us 3 credits. So I didn't have to pay for that.
Terrific.
So I figured I might as well do it.
Wonderful.
It was 6 credits a semester, and then I got my master's degree. And then my very last elective I took was counseling the multicultural student, I think it was. It was a new course that they were offering. And when I took that, that sparked my interest in counseling, because then I was thinking, I love these kids so much, and you're busy teaching them, but I would love to be able to, you're so busy teaching them that you want to help them and you want to do other stuff, but this would be really great then if I could be a counselor. So then I just went straight through and then got a second master's in counseling.
So today, the certifications that you possess, besides your 2 master's degrees.
Right. I have elementary, pre-K, nursery school, K to 6, and then I have certification to teach Spanish 7 through 12. I have certification to teach bilingual K to 12, and then I have guidance certification, and I have like a bilingual guidance certification.
Wow, wonderful. Very
For someone who never wanted to go to school,
Okay.
I was just so glad when I graduated high school, and I was like, oh boy, here I am.
Now, of all of the accomplishments that you've achieved, is there one that's a greater source of satisfaction to you?
Yes, in fact, recent, the end of this year, and it was something that I never expected. I got the nomination for Counselor of the Year through the WISC, Western Suffolk Counselors. Yeah, Nick had nominated me.
Isn't that wonderful?
And yeah,
What an honor.
it was funny because I used to always look at their newsletter, and I would see, whoever the Counselor of the Year is, and I would look and say, well, these are special people. These are, people who go above and beyond. Wow. That would never be me. And then to see, because I just got the issue, and
Isn't
so that was
great?
like,
Congratulations.
yeah. And I think, yeah, it just made, and it came at a nice time that I felt like the fact that I was just retired, that I really did contribute.
Yes. Were you ever afraid to go to work?
Afraid to go to work?
Yeah. Were you ever afraid?
No.
What was the worst?
There was a time that I didn't, not that I didn't like work, but it wasn't as, when I worked at Hemlock Park, I wasn't quite as happy there. I mean, I did my job, but I wasn't, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure why. Okay. But also because I was traveling.
Oh, sure.
Splitting
your day between different.
And I didn't feel, I was working with the bilingual kids, and you were constantly always having to explain, and because they weren't too happy having the bilingual program there at the time. This was when there was a lot of, they were letting teachers go just to hire bilinguals, so it was kind of touchy anyway.
Okay.
So it was difficult.
Difficult.
But I mean, the actual working with the kids and what I was doing, I liked.
Was there ever a day that you could label your worst professional day?
Worst professional day.
I would say if nothing pops out right away, then I would leave that alone.
I really
then it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you had to make a different choice of a career, would you have, in fact, think you'd ever made it as a secretary? Would there another choice that would have been your plan B? If you hadn't become?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the type of person that I love whatever I'm doing. So if I hadn't known, but knowing this, that teaching, definitely this is what I would. This is it. This is who I had to be. But had I not, I probably would have been okay.
Now the reason,
but I would have missed so much.
Yes, and the reason you came to Brentwood, we've learned, is because an opening occurred, and your Uncle Mike said, hey, check it out.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I have to say,
what year was that?
1966.
Okay.
But also, I mean, I have to say, in all honesty, from the time I was a kid, teaching was always somewhere in there, because I mean, I had my own blackboard, and I used to play school, and I remember thinking, someday if I become a teacher, I can write on the board all the time, so that was always there. But I think the part of the reason why I didn't really continue to pursue that is my parents kept saying, you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be a teacher, and you know how like you have to rebel a little or feel like, wait a minute, but I have to do what's my decision. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction that I'm doing what they want me to do, but I really did want to. Because I'm a giver, and I'm a helper. I don't feel good unless I'm helping somebody. So that's why teaching,
perfect.
It's just natural. Yeah.
Was there an interview for the job?
Oh, well, I had, yeah. Well, but it was funny. I had, they were very simple. I'm just trying to think who the superintendent was at the time. Who I had to go in and. Okay, that's who it was, and it was very brief. I guess because they knew they needed. Oh, so I guess yeah, Dr. Nanini, that's who it was. I just felt it was very easy. I figured, well,
excuse me for that.
This isn't going to be a hard interview. Yeah, this isn't going to be a hard interview because I felt, well, the job is mine because my uncle said they need somebody. They left. They're desperate. So I wasn't nervous. And I remember he asked me, he said, do you speak Spanish? And I said, yes. But he didn't bother to check to see if I really did. And I thought that, I mean, I could just say yes and not speak Spanish. Yes. And then they said, okay, now you have to have your physical. And at the time, there was a school doctor, Dr. Orgenblicht, his name was. And my physical exam was, and this is no exaggeration, he had this old desk, and he sat behind the desk, and I had to sit there, and he opened the drawer, and he pulled out a handful of spools of thread, all different colors. And he said, what color is that? What color is that? What color is that? And that was my physical exam. So I was like, what am I getting myself into? What is this teaching going to be like?
That's very funny. Oh.
No, I know. It's like, so I didn't have any
passed the
pressure.
physical.
Right. Yeah, so it wasn't any type of pressure type.
There was really no formal interview then, other than just you met with Dr. Nanini.
Right. And then I was going to be working with Nikki Brash, who was a former sorority sister of mine in college. So I already felt at home. Yeah.
Yeah. What were the first impressions that you had, if you can recall, once you started working in the district with Nikki and you and your uncle is a principal, and you look around and you've heard about the kids here and you've heard about Brentwood for most of your life or much of your life, and now you're here.
Yeah. Well,
what did it feel like?
First, I couldn't believe that I was really, wow, this is really it. I'm really here. And then I remember what we did was I was working as, it was ESL, giving English instruction to the non-English-speaking students, and there weren't as many back then. Because, in fact, I remember I had...
And those that existed were primarily Puerto Rican, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. In fact, what had happened was I had pull-out. I was in South Elementary School in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, Mondays and Wednesdays, I was at what is now North Middle School, was North Junior High at the time. No, that was Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mondays and Wednesdays, I was at East Junior High School, working with those kids. And then on Fridays, we only worked half day. I think I was over at Laurel Park in the morning. And then half day, because then what we had to do was we met, Nikki, John Rivera and I would meet and discuss any cases that we had. But what I found, it was more like social work, because then we had to make home visits. We made home visits to all the houses of the kids that we worked with to see if they needed any help and all that. But at that time, like you said, because these were the Puerto Rican students, and a lot of the Spanish I didn't understand completely because they'd be speaking so fast, and I felt that I don't know if I'm going to be able to do as good a job if I don't really understand everything that well. And that's why I had left for a year, studied at the University of Mexico, and then came back to Brentwood. So I had like 1 year
break. Were you
break.
involved in any other activities or programs during your career while you were, besides teaching bilingual and language and so on? Were you? And
I taught in the PETA classes. I taught the teachers. I taught computers, because that's my second interest. Is I absolutely love computers.
And who did you work with there?
One of the teacher who had gotten me into it was Brian Mangus, who also recently retired because he was also teaching.
Yes.
And Rich Spina was our boss.
Rich Spina, okay.
Right. And I worked under him.
Let me ask you this, Gloria. Coming to work every day, you certainly had a job description. But in addition to the job description, you had your own reason for getting out of bed, coming in on snowy days as well as beautiful mornings, and coming to work. And that was your purpose. And you clearly have a passion for what you did. So how would you have defined, or how do you now define the purpose that you had in coming to work every day?
Of coming to work?
Yeah.
Well, to help the kids. Every day was like a challenge, and I always felt, I'm not saying it's bragging, but I always did go the extra distance. Any student that came into my office for whatever help, whatever it was, my first thing that I always followed is, this is somebody's child, and how do I want my son treated? Because there are kids who are difficult that we don't always like.
You bet.
But you still have to help them. So that's the first thing I would always say. Okay, even though this kid's in pain, or the teachers, all they do is complain about them, I'm going to help them. And that just always was just so, I felt they needed me.
Yes.
And that's what was very difficult for me to retire, too, because I felt that
you were needed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's silly to think. We're all replaceable.
Yeah, but how fortunate you were, though.
But I really feel that I know I helped a lot of kids because
I think you're very fortunate, because when you realize the number of people who work for their whole lives and never really feel needed.
Oh, I know.
They could be replaced in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But
which I was, but
well, you don't feel that way.
It's just, yeah.
Right. Did you have? You were a member of the professional organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever have any
BTA.
time to participate in any of the formal activities of the union?
No, I really didn't.
Was there ever? Well, let me ask it this way. In the course of your work, what made you angry?
What made me angry? All right. Number one, teachers who were teaching who shouldn't be teaching, who are damaging to kids. If they would tell a kid you're stupid or something like that, that just would get me very, very angry. I would also get angry at teachers who would complain about their job. Like, what do you have to complain about?
Yes.
Especially the teachers in Brentwood, we have nothing to complain about. We are treated so well. We're treated professionally. It's a wonderful place to work. The union fights for everything. We have probably, I would say, the strongest union of just about any district that I know. And when I talk to friends who work in other places. So this is what would get me.
And for a long time, we always had a supportive board there looking out for teachers.
Oh, yeah.
With any kind of luck, that will continue.
Yeah.
But
and I would sometimes get annoyed, with teachers if they didn't go that extra thing. Like, what's the big deal? Or I know I shouldn't say this because certain things that are in the contract. If they say, well, it's not in the contract, and I said, well, okay.
When did you retire?
Just recently.
What was the official date of your retirement?
I guess June 30th. Or July 1st. We counted as July 1st.
Of 2007.
2007. And I agonized over that decision.
Why is that?
Because I didn't want to leave. I love
You have had a
work.
taste of retirement.
But yeah.
Just a taste.
I know. And so I'm like, I'm not going to say I don't miss work as much as I thought I would,
But
because there's a whole other life.
What do you miss, though?
I miss being now I'm somebody else. I'm not Gloria the counselor, and that's what I miss.
Okay.
Because when you retire from teaching, you're not just leaving a job, because teaching is not a job. That's who you are. That's your identity. That's your career. That's your life. It's you.
You're leaving people.
Yes, it's funny. As much as I miss the kids, the camaraderie of being around other teachers, I miss.
Yes.
I miss that a lot, because teachers are a special breed of people.
But you have a way, if you take advantage of it, of staying in touch.
Yeah.
Of keeping connected. Do former students keep in touch with you, or do you hear from people?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Teachers. The teachers who I still see.
Right. What was your last building assignment?
North Middle School. Yeah, where I was the guidance
And the total
counselor.
number of years that you were in education?
Total number of years in education, 41.
Do you remember, you mentioned it before, but I'm going to ask you to say it again. The first year when you got that first check, and that's before, well, let's say that would be, well, the taxes were taken out.
Yeah.
I don't think we had Social Security in those days. I don't think Social Security applied yet. But your annual salary before taxes
was $5,100, I think.
$5,100.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to retire if you were so apprehensive about it?
I guess for maybe 3 reasons. My husband had a dry cleaning business, which he had just he just sold. So I figured, well, okay, we could. There's things that more things than that we can be able to do since he's going to be home. The others, my mother was about to had just turned 90, and we bought her house. I live in the house I grew up in, and we built an apartment for her, so she's next door. And I always felt like guilt because I'm working all the time and I don't get to see her, and she's not going to be around forever. So I figured, this would be nice. I'll have more free time,
that was.
and to spend more time with her. To be able to see her, because I feel guilty because whenever I would come home from work, I would take my shoes off and tiptoe in, because as soon as she knows I'm home, and I got to answer the phone, I have things I need to do. But because once I get in there and talk to her, because I know she hasn't talked to anybody all day, so I'm going to be, I have to listen to things that she's repeated a million times. So at least now, I go in there, I see her every day, or I take her shopping, or we do things. So I feel I didn't want to miss that, because there is, contrary to what I initially believed, there's more to life than Brentwood.
Exactly. Is there anything, if you look back over the whole stretch of your career, is there anything that you, having had a chance to do, make second choices? Would you do something differently? Is there anything that you would do differently?
No, not at all. No,
Boy, you're a lucky lady. Wow.
Yeah, sometimes I feel guilty about that because when you hear people complain, maybe I should be complaining about something, or, but all of my experiences throughout my career, things that just always seem to work out.
So let me ask you this then. What don't you miss? There's
the
things that you miss.
Yes.
You miss the people, but the things that you don't miss.
Certain parts of the job that, which I didn't enjoy so much, is like when you have to speak at assemblies and stuff like that. Because again, there still is a certain shyness about me.
Yes,
I hear to do that, right? To have to. And some of the paperwork that gets a little tedious, that I figure, oh good, I don't have to do that.
Was there anything, Gloria, that you would like to have accomplished while you were still active, but you didn't or you couldn't complete before you left? Were there any loose ends?
I think a few of my students that I got very close with that had very serious family problems, I wish I could have had some type of closure with them, that I didn't get to some of them, that I just feel like I just abandoned them.
Yes.
But I did try, at least with the person who took my job, I listed at least the kids, special kids that I thought, for her to be aware of, to try and help that way.
Have you ever given thought to having your own private practice to be certified in a way?
No, it's funny. I thought that that isn't something that I'm interested in, because I think
once you were done, you were done.
Yeah,
in other words.
And part of part of working with the kids too was the whole atmosphere of being in the school. But to just have my own private practice, no, because I have other interests now that I think I would like to do. I mentioned that I absolutely love computers. I design web pages, and I've done a few for a few businesses, and I just do them for fun. I've made web pages for my friends. In fact, my son and I are now taking a continuing ed class at Suffolk Community College on Flash, so you can adding animations to your web pages. Actually, when you said if there's something, if I were to turn the clock back and major in something else, that would have been my second choice. If they had computers way back then, my career would be in computers.
The irony is that when you started teaching, computers didn't exist.
No, just
not personal computers.
No, and I think part of that was because my father was a systems analyst a programmer way back then. So when I was a kid, I remember when he would bring home these big boards and O's and circles and ones and O's and ones and O's, and I was just fascinated by that and say, oh, what is that? What is that?
Isn't that incredible?
So I think, yeah, and then I started part-time, but the next 3 summers while I was going to college, I worked as a key punch operator.
So you had an early education.
Right. Oh, yeah. This was before
technology.
Yeah.
This is in the early stage. That's the 70s, probably.
So, but had they had had that been a major, something you could have learned in school, or had computers been around way back then, that's probably I would have taken that.
I know there's at least one board member that would love to see Brentwood kids have more career experience or exposure while they're still in high school here in Brentwood. Pretty much for the same reason, so that you are exposed to different alternative choices. Based on, well, first of all, complete this sentence or this phrase from your experience. Brentwood students are
great,
and
appreciative,
and Brentwood's teachers are.
I'm just trying to think of a word that describes the whole thing of dedicated.
Good word, yeah. Is there a piece of advice that if you could impart to people who have taken your place and my place and are there now and are beginning to make all the mistakes that we made when we first started and to learn the hard lessons that we learned, is there some advice that you would like to impart to those people who have decided to follow us in this profession?
Yeah. I don't know, I guess to hang in there, keep up the good work.
I think that's key. Hang
give,
in there.
Okay. Just give, and you'll receive.
Okay.
And respect. I think they could just, you have, even kids who are very difficult, if you just show them a respect, and if you show them they care, they can feel it, they know it. Just be yourself and care about them.
You better love kids, too.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Better.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, though, there's always one or two, because in the 41 years, and I mean, I have come across people who shouldn't be teaching.
And there are also kids who you cannot reach.
Yes, I know.
No matter what you do. And you shouldn't waste
precious
time and energy trying to save every soul.
Or let that discourage you. Or
let that discourage you. Did you have, of all of the years, of all 41, did you have a favorite?
I'm not going to say so much a favorite specific year, but my first, let me see, when I was at Southwest, there were 2 years that I absolutely loved because everything clicked, the teachers, the kids, everything there. And then I thought that when I was leaving there to go into guidance, because that was another decision I had to make, I was like, oh, I can't leave this because I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. And then when I got to North Middle School, I loved it, I loved that too. So those first few years too at North Middle were really, really great. I worked under Mark Nisowitz as principal. Okay. I don't think I have to say anymore. It was fantastic.
Yes. You also had the personality that allowed you to go with a new situation, to be flexible and approach it flexibly.
Right.
Gloria, what have I forgotten to ask you, or what would you like to make sure is on the record before we conclude? Is there anything that we have neglected to talk about?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. Your questions and everything were pretty comprehensive.
I just can't thank you enough for being here today and for sharing this story. It's a wonderful.
Now I feel like
story.
Nostalgia. Like, oh my gosh, it just made me rethink the 41 years too.
Well, that's what it's supposed
to do.
So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that was really. That was an hour. Wow.